there's a lot of people now that chase the idea of entrepreneurship and the tag of being an entrepreneur. And then also like weirdly want to teach entrepreneurship before they've actually made some money. Like, show me that you've paid your mortgage off and that you can work whenever you want and that you're actually spending time with your kids. But show me on your terms, not on Instagram's terms. Then I'll believe you when you say you can help me with my entrepreneurship.
On today's episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat, we talk to Mark from Rebel Base Media. Talk about how he accidentally fell into his business and why that was a good thing. Let's dive right in. Mark, thank you so much for joining on another episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat. Always excited to have another podcaster on the podcast, and really more so because I just know the impacts or the powers that has on businesses, which I'm really excited to chat through. But before we dive into that, would love to kind of hear your story, introduce yourself to the audience, and kind of hear how you got on your path to entrepreneurship.
Well, first up, thanks for having me. This is good. I like a good chat. And yeah, it's a funny one, actually. So I work, I am a podcaster, but I work in podcasting. My business is a SaaS founder. We have a podcasting SaaS business called Captivate. And I've sort of been in business for myself since 2005, which is startling, nearly 20 years. Yeah, it's been a while, man. And I just didn't like working for idiots. It was a real problem that I had. Like, I've got a control problem. I did a TEDx on this where, I don't really like people telling me what I can and can't do. It's like a classic, business person problem. Yep. And I just could never fathom why the working days were boring and why it was like why people were just telling me things to do that were clearly stupid, just because they'd always been done like that. And I remember getting this job. I was working for a pensions, like a financial company, when I was 23, and I got a new job. So I went from Leeds, which is a city just like 20 minutes that way, to a Sheffield, which is a city that's 60 minutes that way. And it was the same job, but it was for about $3,000 more per year. And I walked into this job on the first day of it, this new job, thinking, this is brilliant. I've got a brand new job. Like things are looking good. And I walked into this job, dude, and it was like I'd walked into the old job in a new building. It was just the same crap, and I was totally deflated. So I left. I just left. That day, I got to midday, 12 p.m. midday, and just left, and just never worked for anyone again as an employee. So I wouldn't say it was a path to entrepreneurship. I think it was a path out of working for someone, which is a subtle difference, but it's a big difference. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just couldn't fathom working for these plonkers,
Nope, totally hear you. So, you leave the job and, you start your own thing. What is that thing that you started, back in 2006?
Well, here's a tale. So as you might be able to tell, I can talk a fair bit. I'm a talker. I'm a pretty loquacious person, which has done all right for me in podcasting, But I actually went, it was funny. I worked for my dad for about, 3 weeks. So very quick backstory. My dad's an electrician. When I was younger, 16, 17, 18, I was sort of going through an apprenticeship with him, worked with him for a few years. Like, I can do electrics to this day pretty well. I've done the house and stuff, but, if building controller watching this, it's totally fine. And I got back into that. So I went back to work with my dad for like a month, right? But at the same time, I was taking interviews for pretty much anything, just to see what the situation was. Because I didn't know that I wanted to start a business, right? So what happened was I was earning like 20 grand, so like 20K when I left my last job. I was like 22, 23. And I got, because I'm a talker and I'd had a little bit of training background, a little bit of project management background, I got an interview for a project management and training role, which was basically teaching like NHS, National Health Service stuff to the NHS. And I got the job. Like, I'd never really done it before. I just blagged into it, got the job. But I sort of had the confidence. Like, I had no idea that the Richard Branson quote, the whole say yes and then figure it out. I had no idea that that was a thing. Like, I was just doing it. Yeah. So I get this job, and the salary, it was a day rate salary, and I was working full time. So I went from 20 grand a year, this month of working with my dad again, just to kind of pay some bills. And then when I got this job, I jumped into earning like 200 grand a year, man, at 23 years old. Yeah, it was nuts. But what happened was, I mean, there's a whole other story about this, how I quit doing that and went back to earning 20 grand a year. Like, that's a whole other tale. But what that did was it kind of gave me the space, because, dude, that job was easy. Like, they didn't need me full time, but they were paying me for full time. Because of IR35 law in the UK, I had to work from home when I wasn't on site. So, dude, I was like earning all this money and I had all this free time. So what I did was I reinvested that into learning, and I learned how to code websites, and really invested in my own training and my own knowledge. And then did the inevitable. Bear in mind, this is 2005. Like, started a web design company, which, we scaled. I mean, there was a couple of ups and downs, and, there's a whole story in there as well. But we ended up scaling this business to working with like the New York Times and Bosch and Adobe and all these people. And that led me into podcasting later. But yeah, I started a web design business because the people were paying me for days that I weren't working. It was like 23 years old, man. It was the dream,
Can't ask for more.
Yeah, exactly. It was awesome.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you left the job, got this nice paying gig, which allows you to kind of reinvest back into your knowledge, kind of grow a side hustle. So web design to now what you do now, which is help podcasters. Would love to kind of hear the journey to that.
Fast forward to like 2014. So, excuse me. I'd say fast forward to 2011. So you might see, like, I'm a bit of a geek. I've got a sort of backdrop similar to you. Like,
notice the X-Men in the background.
No, it's the X-Men. Well, down there, if you can see, if anyone's watching a video, you can see I've got some DC Comics stuff. Yep. And that's like my first love, was DC Comics stuff. So 2011, DC Comics do a relaunch of all their line, and I get back into to reading comics, right? So at the same time, I'm a voracious consumer. Like, if I'm into something, dude, I am into something, which served me well later on in podcasting. So what I did was started consuming all this content, started this blog with a mate of mine, Gaz, called 2 Shots to the Head. And he said to me, dude, we should do a podcast. And I was like, dude, why would I want to do a podcast? It's not 2005. Like, Lost isn't on TV anymore. Like, I like to wear trousers and I don't want to sit in my basement. Like, what are we going to talk about? It's going to be weird. Like, that's what podcasting was. Geeks in a basement talking about Lost, right? So he made me do it. And I've still got the microphone that he made me buy in the studio in the office. And we started this podcast. I was listening to Kevin Smith. He was my first foray into real podcasting. Listening to Kev Smith. Gaz made me start this podcast. And then, like I said, I get obsessed with stuff, right? So I got obsessed with podcasting. I'm on holiday that year with my girlfriend at the time, and thinking to myself, well, I've managed to scale this kind of design and digital business in this really small mining town to working not only profitably, but working with some really sweet brands. And a lot of people sort of said, how have you done that? So I thought, well, wait a sec. I know what I'll do. In 2012 or whatever it was, 2013, I'll start a podcast interviewing people like me so that I don't have to answer these questions. I can point them to the podcast, right? So I started thinking this, and became friends with like John at EO Fire, and he's a close friend, and we worked together for years. Because what I then did was, because of my obsession, I instantly, like the day of creating my first podcast, I also created a business in podcasting called Podcast Websites, which was, this is what I do, man. I get obsessed. So we started this business, Kieran and myself, who was my co-founder, and then we did a partnership with John at EO Fire for years. Like I said, years and years we worked on that, and we just brought WordPress as a service to podcasting. Still the number one WordPress service out there for podcasters, and it's still around. It does its job, and that's what got me into podcasting, dude. Like, that was the catalyst. I was like, ooh, and then sort of fast forward. It was about 2017, 2016 maybe. I was a little bit bored. I was going through some personal stuff, and I was like, I need a change. Podcasting was was kind of in this weird place. Like more people were sort of saying it's the golden era of podcasting, but I'd been in it for 4 or 5 years. I'd been in it for a while at that point. And so I closed the agency, got out of the agency game and started the wider business that we've got now, where we build Captivate and productivity and, continue with podcast websites. And that was the transition, dude. It was weird. It's just because I got obsessed with things. I love digging into stuff.
Well, and that's the best part of, entrepreneurship. If you're doing something you love, it doesn't seem like work, and you kind of navigated how you're making money in the current time based off of what you're currently loving. And that's one, a way to wake up happy every single day. And two, make money while being happy. You can't really ask for more. That's literally the dream.
Yeah, it is on paper. It's tough. Don't get me wrong. Like Captivate, is a business that's scaled very quickly. The hosting platform and the distribution platform. We scaled that to like 7 figures within 12 months. It was quick, and it was focused. It was hard. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you do get that. I do love what I do, but dude, it is tough. Like, we're having a ropey week this week. Just, when these weeks when things don't seem to go right. And as much as I love doing it, like you still get the 4 a.m. wake ups, you still get the stress and the worry and the headaches. And a lot of people sort of cliche that a little bit. A lot of people will say, yeah, just outsource everything and hire in and, work on your business, not in your business. And that's a really naive way of looking at it. It's like this, that's realistic up to like $1 million. And that's cool for a lifestyle business. And that is cool. Don't get me wrong. And I love the ability to do that. But if you to scale it, it is tough. So there is an element of that waking up and loving what you do, but there is also the stress and the everything that goes with it. So I'm sort of saying that because it's easy to paint that picture of entrepreneurship as being like this ideal. And it's tough, man. It is tough. There's no doubt it's hard.
No, it's definitely hard. There's constantly something that you got to figure out, whether it's, the product or services that you sell or internally within the business, someone leaving, you got a couple big new clients or whatever it may be. You got to figure out how to scale up, come back down. it is hard, but at least you're not taking orders from someone. And I guess that's the reward right there. You gotta get kicked in the mouth, every once in a while, it's sometimes wake up going, why do I do this to myself? But at the end of the day, it's so that, we don't have to hear someone tell us what to do when we go and look at that task. And it's like, how is this even going to impact the business at all? I think it's the wanting to make a difference and drive value. And that's the reason why it gets hard is sometimes it's, if you feel like you're not driving the value that you should be, it's you kind of get frustrated, but at the end of the day, it's not having to listen to someone else. You kind of march to the beat of your own drum, which is the most ideal scenario.
Yeah, it is. And I think, that's one thing that, I talk about in my TEDx. It's called Choose Happiness, Choose Control. And the notion of it is that it's this idea that we originally chased money when we were a little bit younger. And then we sort of believe that money, this is sort of back to that 200K a year story. I quit doing that because there was still, when I really didn't want to be where they wanted me to be, there was still someone saying, if you want that great salary and that great freelance rate, you have to be there when I say. Yeah. And, regardless of why I'm saying I want you there, that's the price of it. And I was like, screw this. Like, I'd rather have less money. I'd rather have the control. And it's a weird scenario to find yourself in, especially because like sort of that comes sort of with age, especially now. Like I was brought up in an age where I was just cresting into the internet. Like my first exposure to the internet was like age 15, 16. It wasn't age 1, 2, 3, and 4. I didn't have a cell phone, a mobile phone until I was 17. I'm of that generation that just about remembers the other stuff before this. And there was no instant gratification. There was no Instagram. There was no needing to make sure that someone believed I was doing well when I wasn't. I could genuinely do it for myself without the externals having an impact on it. So that was a fascinating time to come up and then mature, and then to see that sort of swing, that change, entrepreneurship become this sexy thing. And it's not because people want to do the work and have a business. It's because they don't want to have a job, which is fine, but yet they're not making money as entrepreneurs because what they're doing is chasing being an entrepreneur instead of chasing making money. And I think what's fascinating as well is like we also live in this world where it's a little bit scary to say that you're making money and you want to make money. Everyone will say, put your clients first. Yeah, obviously. You can't make money without doing that. Provide value. Yeah, sure. That's sort of a given. Like that's like a plumber turning up at my house and wanting to be applauded for being able to do plumbing. Like that's the baseline. That's the basic that you've got to do to turn up. And I suppose what I'm saying with that is that there's a lot of people now that chase the idea of entrepreneurship and the tag of being an entrepreneur. And then also like weirdly want to teach entrepreneurship before they've actually made some money. Like, show me that you've paid your mortgage off and that you can work whenever you want and that you're actually spending time with your kids. But show me on your terms, not on Instagram's terms. Then I'll believe you when you say you can help me with my entrepreneurship. It's what a weird world, man.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, you mentioned the Gary Vee shoes. I mean, he mentions all the time how there's, these 19, 20-year-old life coaches out there. And it's like, how much life have you really lived where you can coach someone else on their life? But I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of great entrepreneurs out there, people out there that just want to make a difference and help solve a problem. But I think there's a lot that is doing it for the vanity of just doing it. But I think it goes back to how long is that going to sustain waking up, just, dealing with the hardships of entrepreneurship if you're just doing it to look good on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly, man. I think to your point as well, there's a lot of good small business owners that if they prove they can do it once, twice, 3 times and get better and keep scaling and or keep pivoting and moving sideways after creating one success after another, then they become great entrepreneurs. But right now there's a lot of small business owners that are doing really well. And I think that's a real distinction. Like I remember someone years ago, so I had this conversation with like a business coach. She was freelance, worked on her own. She'd not scaled anything. She'd not sold anything, which fine. I'm not saying that's for everyone. But somehow she was getting paid to help me with that stuff. And I was like, well, wait a second. Like, I'm a terrible golfer. Why would anyone pay me for lessons? I didn't work out in my head. So anyway, so she said to me, this is back in the web design days. She's like, Mark, if you're going to scale, you've got to understand your capacity. I was like, well, I have no capacity. She said, what do you mean? Are you too busy? I said, no, I have no limit. She said, well, you must have a limit. Like if I came to you with 10 websites, what would you do? I said, well, first and foremost, I'd give you a lead time. And secondly, I'd hire resource in to cover these on a freelance basis. And then, we would cover them. She said, yeah, but then what if 10 more came? I'd say, I'd just rinse and repeat that. And she didn't get it. Like she didn't get that you could think in that abstract manner and in that scaling manner. And when I didn't know this, but about 6 months later, she was having a conversation about me with someone that I got to know later. And apparently she described me as entrepreneurial. And I didn't know that. Like, I don't see myself as an entrepreneur. I've never seen myself. I've never called myself one. And she described me at age 23, 24 as entrepreneurial. I didn't know that. But it was because of that lack of boundaries that I had. Almost that naivety in, that willingness to scale when all she wanted to do was do business projections. And I totally get that. And I understand there's a place for it. But she couldn't compute that didn't work. Like in my mind, I was just a small business owner that would handle what came through the door. And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs these days don't do. They're more interested in, 10x your whatever and explode your X and, rocket power your Y. And it's all rubbish. It's just the tried and tested methods have always been the same. Do the work, tell the people and let people know where you are. Like, that is it. That's business. Keep doing that. When you've done it 4 times and when you can prove that you've done it 4 times, then you're an entrepreneur, So, I don't know. Stop chasing the label.
Yep. No, it's funny you bring that up because I totally agree. And I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on how many people maybe overplan rather than just execute and go do. Because basically what you're leaning on is you can sit there and plan, but you might get 10 websites and you take it on and you might get 10 more. And basically you got to figure out a lot on the fly. And that's, I mean, it is difficult to do whenever you got, 20, 30, 40 moving parts going on at the same time. But what are your thoughts on how people navigate over planning rather than just kind of, there's a point to planning. You can't just, live by the seat of your pants, but at the same time, there is a point where you're over planning and now you wasted so much time because 80% of what you planned for didn't happen. You had to adjust in real time anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good question. And planning, all good plans falter the second you start them because there are so many assumptions and it's inevitable. And I think, if you think about going on a journey, you look at the overview of the journey, right? I'm going from there to there. It's going to take me a day to get there, whatever. I'm going to drive from New York to Florida. It'll take me a day, whatever. And, you turn out of your street and there's a car crash. So you reverse and you go the other way. Plan gone. You got the overview, the destination, but the tactics and the route is different. All right. And that's the same in business. And all you can do is assume the next 3 steps, but know the destination, and if you can really make sure that you are fully aware of what you want to achieve. And in particular, what you, not you, the royal Hugh, as in you, the business, but you, the person, want to achieve, the lifestyle balance, the revenue, the how you want to work, the way you want to work, the what you want to do, the plan becomes a lot clearer because you know what you've got to put out and what test you've got to overcome at any given time. So I like to equate sort of startup approaches to this, which is everything that you're doing is just one more experiment, So we had a client on Captivate before it could do anything apart from generate an RSS feed and publish, or like maybe measure some analytics. It could measure them, but it couldn't display them. And if I'd have planned everything, we'd have never got a client. But this chappy and friend of mine that I know, he was like, I need to start a podcast. I was like, dude, I've got a hosting platform. I was like, all right, let's use it. I was like, oh, okay. What, now? Yes, now. Oh, right. Okay. Here you go. And we got it on, and it was, I told him, I was like, look, dude, this is MVP. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. And you know what? The platform was better the second he jumped on it because he was like, mate, I really love this, but if you move that button to there, my life would be easier. So we moved the button to there, and that was it. But the plan that we'd made for that button was different. And that can scale, that ideaship and that way you implement that MVP attitude scales. What's your marketing? Well, it's MVP. What's your attitude to whatever? What's your attitude to opportunities? It's MVP. What's the quickest thing that we can do to test properly whether this thing will work? And suddenly after 50 tests, you've got X amount of users and people paying you, or you've got clients and you've got other things going on. And the planning is brilliant because it gives you like the best case scenario. It gives you the best case scenario, but the MVP approach, the minimum viable product approach, gives you the worst case preparation because you just do one thing at a time. It's like if you're sprinting across a road and something happens, it's difficult to get back to the other side. Whereas if you're sensibly walking, you're taking everything in. It's the reason that we don't tell kids to run. You're looking at what the dangers are. You're assessing it. It's easier to step back one step at a time than to try and get all the way back because your plan was to go there. So you've got to plan and measure every little step, but do it just like that, step by step by step. And I think a lot of people do it through fear. A lot of people, they'll over-research stuff. But then they also under-research stuff. Like, this is the weird thing. So what they'll do is they'll over-research stuff, but they'll only really research stuff that helps with their positive biases. So they'll research stuff that tells them that their plan is going to work. Whereas really, if they want to over-plan, they should be researching things that are risks to their approach. And they don't. Instead, what they'll do is, we've looked at the data now. This podcast network's definitely going to work. Well, why have you launched it yet? Well, we want to get a few more data points to make sure that it's really going to work. And you're like, well, if you're confident that it's going to work, you're either afraid of putting it out, which is totally fine. Everyone's scared of something. Yeah. Or research the things that are the risks. What are the competitors doing? What are the technical and the sociological changes that you've got to be aware of over the next 6 months, you know? So it's bizarre, man. People get analysis paralysis, or they only research the things that will positively bias their belief already. It's weird, man. You know what I mean? It's weird.
No, I 100%. I mean, running an agency, I mean, there's a acronym that we have, ABT, and it's always be testing. And it's, to your point, it's, with a new client, they want these huge, robust forecasts and plans and all that. And I'm like, 98% of the time, as soon as we hit go and all the ad platforms start running, we get data back that completely just washes what we planned. And you have to navigate in real time. It might mean new creative, new message, whatever it may be. But I think, to your point, the analysis paralysis is a huge thing. And where I was going with the agency stuff is deal with that when it comes to campaign planning. It's, well, what about this? And what if we hit that? And then it's all these what ifs, and it's, well, what if 98% doesn't happen? Well, we never will know until we just get going. And the longer that we wait, there's opportunity costs. We're not getting in front of people, which is not driving sales. So you seem to have a really good grasp on this and don't let this impact you. So I guess my question would be, what is your suggestion to avoid this? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners, whoever it may be, can really relate to this. So how would one navigate to not go down this path and just get more on the side of just going and navigate in real time, knowing what the end goal is?
Yeah, good question. It's about that Reid Hoffman quote, and to paraphrase it, it's, if you're not embarrassed by what you ship, then you ship too late. That's to paraphrase. It's not the exact quote, but the notion is there. If you're running creative for an ad campaign, for example, you're basing that initial creative on assumptions. Mm-hmm. If you're building software, the use cases, as much user testing as you do, is based on assumptions. The second you put it out into the real world, those assumptions will be tested. So you have to really get ahead of that and say, we have got to test these assumptions early. And that comes down to just saying, do you know what? Let's just get this out in its most embarrassing state. Like, I call it the blue tack and sellotape approach. Like, when you sort of build something, you've kind of sellotaped it up and blue tacked it together, and it's sort of a little bit rickety and you could push it over if you really tried. But let's assume you're building like, something in the garden or whatever, or, whatever it is. You kind of map it out, and I tell you the best example actually is, say you're buying new furniture. If you've ever bought new furniture, and you do all sorts of crap. You like get cardboard cutouts. You like put cushions where the measurements are for the sofas and all that stuff. You get all these different things. None of them are the real sofa or the couch. It's just, here's where we think it will be. If that's the thing that you hate, because that's in the wrong place, then you don't buy the couch, you don't buy the sofa, because this thing is in the wrong place, and that's the MVP. It's the same with SaaS. Like, with Captivate, we could very easily have polished up an entire platform that looks like it does today, but we'd have got like 80% of it wrong. Instead, it was like, okay, can you publish episodes? Yes. Does it generate an RSS feed? Yes. Does it measure analytics? Yes. That is enough. Let's test if people find that part useful, and then we'll build around it. And we'll ask people, what do you want next? Because that's the other unseen thing, is that if you stick to your plans, they are your plans, not your users' plans, and not your target market's plans. And if your target market and your user base are wanting one thing, and you are so bullheaded in your own desires and wishes to fulfill the plan that you so powerfully made because you are the mega expert, then it will go wrong. It will go wrong. Your users dictate anything. It's like podcasting, man. The second you press publish, someone else is a stakeholder in your podcast. So your listeners are the dictators in your podcast, not you. If they say, we don't like listening to Mark, I ain't coming back. And if they don't like this segment you do, or they don't like how you approach X, unless you change it, then they ain't coming back. And it's the balance. It's the all-powerful, mighty creator the person that knows everything because this is my baby, versus the people that actually use and pay for this thing, who are actually the real masters. And this goes back to the entrepreneurship thing. You know, if you don't MVP it, push it out, test it, measure it, tweak it, iterate it, make it perfect for the users, you ain't got a product. But the problem is that entrepreneurs don't want bosses. So you become an entrepreneur. And what you do is you swap one boss, who granted is usually a bit of a plonker, and you swap them for 50 bosses, 1,000 bosses, 1,000,000 bosses, all the people that pay for your stuff. They have the power. But the difference is it's a collaborative power that you can help direct, and you can control the feedback from, and you can shape, and you can twist, and you can work with it, you can appreciate, versus the boss who's a true dictator. So I think when it comes to the MVP, I think it's all about, like, it's about defining that first assumption and testing that first assumption. We worked on a startup a few years ago, and it was fun, but it really wasn't, it wasn't anything that I was mega passionate about. And we were building this AI platform to help people with, like, busy people like you and me, entrepreneurs. Like, you'll have been in the doghouse 50 times for missing Valentine's Day and missing, like, birthdays. We all do that, don't we? We're like, oh, crap.
That was yesterday?
Yeah, exactly, right? So we built this sort of this idea whereby what we were going to do is we were going to get you signed up to this AI platform, and what it was going to do, it was going to learn a little bit about the people that you were popping, that you had upcoming events for and upcoming occasions for, and it was going to suggest gift ideas and get ahead of time with it, and it was going to buy the things for you eventually with integrated payments and Twilio and the kind of text message back and forth that we had, because that's the easiest method of interacting with you. It was actually, now I've said it back, it's a badass idea. I just wasn't into it at the time because I was in podcasting. Maybe I should revisit that. But the idea was sound. But what we did was we had to prove that people wanted help. That was the biggest assumption. So what did we do? We blue tacked and sellotaped it. We got some free Twilio credits from the accelerator that we were working with. And we linked Twilio's API to Slack, and we basically got all of the text messages. We basically went around all the entrepreneurs and founders that we knew in our startup community, got them to text us an occasion and who the occasion was for and what they liked. And we manually sourced gifts and presents and reminders. We manually did it. But we tested the assumption that they wanted this service, and they did. We actually, we got a couple of the founders genuinely out of some heat for forgetting their kids' birthdays. But was it tough? Yes. Were we up late? Yes. Was it sexy? No. Was it seamless? No. Was it powerful? No. It was none of these sexy things. It was just like me and Adam on a text message, So that's the approach you got to take. But again, back to the entrepreneurship point, like, a lot of people don't want to get their hands dirty. You see it with podcast hosts now. Yeah, if you want to be on my podcast, you're going to need to fill in these 50 questions. And I used to do this with my interview show, but I'd only get people to fill in 2 and then give me some actionable takeaways. It's like, you must promise to rate and review this show. You must promise to share on LinkedIn. And I'm like, I don't want to be on your show because that sucks. Like, what? Why would I review your show just because I've been on it? That's like me saying I'm Ace. Like, just, that's silly. So it's this weird thing. People don't want to get their hands dirty and do the hard work anymore. Sound like my dad. They want to do the sexy stuff, and you can't. To get, like, I can now, and the team can do sexy stuff, but we've put like 20 years of doing the crap behind us, And when we do another startup, we'll do another 10 years of the crap, and then we'll do another 10 years. It's what you do. But a lot of people chase the tag. I know that's a very digressive answer, but I think it's kind of all related.
Yeah, no, I think, because everyone's posting the glorious, times of running a business or whatever it may be, people don't see the hard work behind the scenes that get it to where it looks sexy and fun. The waking up at 4 a.m., staying up till midnight, the late night conversations and calls and decision making that needs to be done. People don't document or show that. They only show the whenever all that stuff led to the big deal, and then, oh, I want to be part of that. And then you get people that, you know, all right, that's exactly what I want, and then don't realize how truly hard it is to take an idea, get it out to the world to where it actually drives revenue, to where it can employ people, you know, have the resources to actually grow it. I mean, it's extremely hard.
Yeah, it is. And humility is a big part of that. You know, it's, you know, to put it into context, like we work with thousands and thousands of podcasters we captivate, you know, thousands. And to get to that point, we had to put deep time in, you know, from 2013, going to the conferences across the world. You know, we've been speaking at Podcast Movement for years, and I'm talking 6 years of getting up at 2 a.m. to travel and being tired and jet lagged and being away from family. And, you know, there are times when I've done conferences on like 2 hours sleep per night because I've been that jet lagged, but I needed to and wanted to put the time in getting to know people and building genuine friendships in podcasting. And, you know, you look at what's going on now, not in podcasting, but generally a lot of the time on like places like LinkedIn, it's, you know, someone is asking you for a favor and then asking you to work around their schedule and then asking you to do the work for their team so that they don't have to tell you what's going on. And you think, look, we're keen to do this and everyone's happy to help, but like, do a bit of the work, you know? And I think that's a symptom of a lot of entrepreneurship these days, and a lot of, I wouldn't say founders, but certainly a subset of startup founders who they have sort of taken the entrepreneur tag and the founder tag, applied it, allowed that to raise their ego, and then sort of expect everyone, because they've got founder on their Twitter bio, to be beholden to them. And that's real tough. You got to, the fastest way to accelerate your business and to build your business is to be just the most humble person in the room. Like, without a doubt, that is the most powerful way of doing it.
Completely agree. I mean, grew up playing baseball, and that's went to really young and went to go talk about the night before how many strikeouts or whatever. And my dad, you know, no, just let your actions do all the talking. Just stay quiet, and people will notice if you know you put in the work and the results are showing and all that. So totally agree. I mean, just head down, grind away. You know, if you're really, you know, if you're more concerned about what you look like to other people, then that's a pretty selfish thing to do, because you're trying to grow this business, which is there to help and serve your prospective audience. And so the more you focus on just doing, it'll show and people will follow. But, you know, one thing I did want to ask, you've been doing this for a while, you've had quite a bit of growth. Is there a single tactic or a group of tactics over the years that you can attribute to really seeing tons of growth with the business? Whether it's a Google Ads or a certain marketing tactic, whatever it may be?
Yeah, so there's a few of them. I mean, you know, which way shall I go on this one? There's the classic marketing stuff, and all of that comes down to content and community. You know, content and community and consistency. You know, be consistent with content and community, and good things will happen. I could go deeper into that, I'm sure, and you know, go on about that for a while, but the most powerful thing has been leveraging a personal brand. You know, like I said, when we launched Captivate, it did well out of the gate because everyone in podcasting knew me, and it wasn't because I'd marketed to them; it was because I'd had drinks with them and I'd spent years traveling to all these conferences and being tired and being away, and you know, being the person that was never at home and that was always late and that was, you know, missing birthdays. I wish I had a service for that. But there was always these things that I don't want to say sacrificing, because it wasn't a sacrifice, like it was my choice, but I was trading them off. And I would do it again because I was trading them off for friendships, and I was trading them off for relationships, and I was trading them off for genuinely giving to a community. And there's only a couple of reasons that something will succeed in a market. And having a reputation in that market beforehand is the single biggest thing that you can do. it's why Gary Vee can pivot so much. You know, I've been very fortunate to spend time with Gary and done some work with VaynerMedia and well, you know, kind of been to their place a few times and had a good chat with Matt Guerin and a few of their people that work. Yeah, they're a sweet set of people, and you know, and I'm very grateful for being able to do that. I'm not saying that because it's like, look at me, Gary's my friend. Like, he's not my friend. I just know him. Yeah. He's a good guy. But there's so much that we've done, and I've been very fortunate to go to those places on a very speculative basis, just going to help. Like, legitimately, dude. Like, I've flown to Apple for a meeting for 1 hour. So I've gone from the UK to LA, driven from LA to San Jose to Palo Alto, Cupertino, had a meeting, got back in the car, drove back to LA, got back on a flight and came home. I've done that a couple of times. And that is the single biggest thing that you can do in any business, is be willing to cultivate relationships without the need to take, and to just be there and to just build those friendships. Now, I know that's not a solid marketing tactic. It's not what did you spend your money on. It's not where did you, I mean, we can talk about that, but you know, that the short answer for that would be content, you know, and very focused content in particular. But it's relationships, man. You know, a lot of people forget that commerce has been going on since day dot. You know, since day one, before we understood anything as a species, we were trading, and we were trading because and we were trading in ways that were always mutually beneficial. You know, and we were building relationships before the internet. We were building relationships before booking links and before schedulers and before, you know, people got so busy that they couldn't chat. And I think just going back to some of that will really surprise people, like how effective that can be. And I know that's really cliche, like that's the sort of stuff you find in a $97 course, you know what I'm saying? But that it really is the most powerful thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's to your point, it's not, I spent money and built relationships. But what I will say is, I mean, when it comes to tactics and channels and all that, it's, you take a step back and what is it that you're saying to your prospective audience? A sale here or buy. What you could do is more workshops, more in-person events, more what if you know that it's relationships that lead to growth and scaling, what can you do from a tactic perspective that grows those relationships? And I think you can really put fuel to the fire using Facebook ads, YouTube ads, I mean, all the things that are out there today to then create the in-person events, which then nurture relationships, which then lead to those sales and growth that you're wanting. So I think that's a good observation that's how you guys have been able to grow, is just really nurture relationships and just do good in the industry.
Well, I agree, man. I think it's, you know, all that top of the funnel stuff, that tactical stuff is the stuff that you would instantly Google. You know, if you were a business person with a product or a course or whatever, and you were trying to sell it, you know, you would instantly just search and start to learn a little bit about how to get more traffic. And scaling the middle part of the funnel is the challenge. The top of the funnel stuff is easy. You just, like you said, you find something that works, you fuel it, and I'm not being reductive. I know it's not easy, but I'm saying that is the easier part of getting the sale. You know, it's actually converting that's the much more challenging part. And I think what's interesting with that is that it doesn't have to be. You know, a lot of people struggle. Like a lot of people buy traffic in and they'll do it through Facebook ads. They'll do it through podcast advertising. They'll do it through whatever channel they do right at the top of the funnel. And they find the middle and the bottom of the funnel so very difficult because they've not done that work at the middle. So they've not been present. They've not been available, and they're not doing any alignment. They're not doing any research into messaging. They're not doing any language guidelines. They're not doing anything to scale the understanding of that relationship, and that's where that relationship really comes in. So just to your point on that one of the it's a bit of a kind of alliterative term for it. You don't have to call it this, but I'd always said I've got something called a presence promise, where, you know, inevitably every single week for my audience, I will be available at this place at this time every single week, 4 p.m. UK, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, every Friday for the last 7 years, I've done a Facebook Live without fail. I mean, that's not true. We canned it for 3 months while we revamped it. I've been there, promised to be present. Now, that is the perfect stuff, because guess what? It fosters community. It builds people. It bolts extra people on. And like you said, you can fuel that fire by putting Facebook ads into it, by pushing it through your email list, by running a pile of Google ads to it. But what the fantastic thing with that is that all that top of the funnel stuff, which really works, all that content stuff, the alignment with the audience, the top of the funnel prospecting, things like for us in podcasting, the big long tail questions like, what's the best podcast mic under $100? Like your content strategy, where the top of the funnel is bang, 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 bang. We are ever present, omnipresent. What a lot of people will do, and rightly so, funneling people through to an email sequence, funneling people through to a sales process, it works. There's nothing wrong with that. But in this increasingly busy online space, a presence promise, a place that you will always turn up, there's not really that much effort, workshop it or office hours or webinar it. I'm a fan of the more informal stuff. I think the webinars are great, but they're a little bit one way. But a way that you can workshop things, a way that you can give value and presence without necessarily making people feel like they're turning up to a sales pitch, like that is really, really important. And I think the busier the world gets, the more personal we've got to become at the middle stages of the funnel to turn people into advocates. Because if you get them on side, we know the old classic tropes, the cliches, no, like, trust. Just no one's doing the like bit and the trust bit. They're all doing no, sell, no, sell, no, sell. So it's, I could talk about this all day, man. It's fascinating to me. But yeah, that's some of the stuff we do.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I think that it's that middle of the funnel, and just being present there is what's going to cut through the noise as everything gets more digital and busy, and love hearing your perspective on that. I mean, you're helping a lot of people grow their podcast, and really it sounds like helping. What are your goals? Let's help you get there. What are you guys doing in the next 3 to 6 months, or trying to accomplish from a business perspective, but also you personally?
Yeah, podcasting is the passion that we've got, So for us, it's all our goals are tied hand in hand with that. I'd still be podcasting if I didn't work in podcasting. So my own personal goals are to just give the team a good life, and have a good life for the family, and that's facilitated by having a good business that helps other people to have good lives. And, podcasters, they're what we do. We help them to grow. We give them a way to build revenue, a way to promote and build their own audience and monetize it in ways that they want. And that, as long as we keep doing that, whether it's through feature set, whether it's through community, whatever it is, that's the goal for the next year. And, it's really improve the lives of podcasters when it comes to growing the audience and helping them to monetize, because obviously that will help fulfill our personal goals, but they get to benefit from it as well. So that's the real goal for Captivate. It's got to be sort of equalize the playing field for podcasters a little bit, let them see that they've got options beyond $10 CPM and $20 CPM. Let's give them more targeted, specific monetization options. That's the big thing. I think is important to let people achieve their goals. That's what we exist to do.
Love it. That's what we're in business to do. Help change family trees and help people achieve their personal business goals. This has been great. I mean, I feel like I can sit here and chat with you for 10, 15 hours straight. Love everything that you're about, and I can't wait to continue to watch your growth.
Thanks, dude. This has been awesome. Like you said, I could chat on this all day, and it's a pleasure to chat to you, my man.
Yep. Appreciate the time, and look forward to seeing your growth.
Thank you, sir. And you.
Thank you.